Hey, listen, one of our favorite things is when we get email from you, our television listeners, television viewers across the country, or our radio listeners nationwide. But keep in mind, we're also on an Armed Forces Radio Network in 175 countries, so who knows where we get these folks. But one of our executive producers, Greg Todoroff, got an email about a company called Salarius Pharmaceuticals.
That's Salarius.
Salarius Pharmaceuticals. Kind of a scary topic because they develop treatment of pediatric cancer as well as hard to treat cancer.
Hey, we know about
That's something
this.
you want to talk about, but it's something that's important. And they have kind of a unique approach here. The CEO of the company's name is David Arthur. By the way, they are publicly traded under the stock symbol SLRX. So whoever emailed us about this company, thanks so much, because the more I look into it, the more interested I am in talking to him. SalariusPharma.com is their website. But David Arthur joins us here via Zoom. Hey, David, how are you? Great to talk to you.
Yeah, great to be here. Bob and Russ, thanks for having me today. I'm looking forward to the discussion.
We do know a little bit about the fact that very little federal money goes to research pediatric cancer because of our good friend.
Yeah, that's a couple things that are difficult here is the fact that you guys don't get a lot of research money, so you're out there kind of on your own. Talk to us about overall, before we get into Salarius, how are we doing with respect to hard to treat cancers and pediatric cancers, in your opinion, David? You're sort of the tip of the spear here.
So thanks for asking the question. The obvious answer is we need to do better. That doesn't mean we're not working on it. It doesn't mean there aren't great organizations out there that are pursuing a lot of different approaches to pediatric cancer. But part of the challenge is by nature, every single pediatric cancer is rare. In the United States, there are only about 16,000 new patients or kids, adolescents diagnosed every year with pediatric cancer, and probably half of those are leukemia. And so when you do the math, many of these pediatric cancers are anywhere from 500 to 1,000 patients a year in the U.S., and that just doesn't attract the type of investment from big pharma and venture capitalists and the government, as you mentioned, that's needed to really move the rock. So that's what's made my job at Salarius that much more exciting. If we're successful, we're really going to leave footprints in this area and make a big difference in some patients' lives.
So talk about epigenetics, because that's your guys' wheelhouse here. And what does that mean for the rest of us?
Epigenetics.
Epigenetics. And what do you guys do? What are you guys doing to get there?
So epigenetics, fancy term, the PhD term. I like to use the term, regulatory.
Okay.
It really talks about regulating genes, or in a lot of cases, in the case of what we're studying and trying to develop a medicine for, misreading genes. So in a number of discussions, I use the analogy of, in the kitchen following a recipe. If you follow the recipe perfectly and you have the right ingredients and the right amounts in the right order, everything turns out great. But, like me, I'll be moving too fast. I'll misread the recipe. I'll have the wrong amount. I'll put it in the wrong order. And next thing I know, I have a problem on my hands.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not at all dissimilar to what happens in an epigenetic cancer.
Sure.
The body looks at healthy genes. That's important. These are healthy genes, and it just misreads them. And it ends up combining a couple of proteins that should never be connected together. And next thing you know, that oncoprotein, as it's called, is sending the signal to the rest of the body to start growing cancer.
Wow.
So talk to us about your therapies and where they are in the arc of the FDA story, David. By the way, David Arthur is our guest. He's the CEO of Salarius Pharmaceuticals. They are publicly traded under the stock symbol SLRX. You can go to salariuspharma.com. But give us kind of an overview of where you're at with your cancer treatments and where that is with respect to FDA.
Well, we are at a very exciting point in researching our lead medicine, seclidemstat, for the treatment of a variety of sarcomas, most notably Ewing sarcoma. We can talk a little bit about that in a moment. But we are in what is called phase 2 clinical trials, which means we've identified the dose that we want patients to take. We've now expanded our trial to include 3 different types of cancers that all share the same biology or similar biology to Ewing sarcoma, and we're actively recruiting patients in those 3 cancers across, I think at last count, 10 different, maybe 14 different sites across the country. Big names: Dana-Farber, MD Anderson, Memorial Sloan Kettering, LA County Children's. I could go down the whole list, but it's a point in the process where if we see some data that we're hoping to see.
Yeah.
You know, if we can replicate or come close to replicating what we've seen in early studies in sarcoma cell lines and in animal models, you know, we're hoping to be talking to the FDA, you know, maybe this time next year.
Boy, that's great stuff. And the timeline on that, you know, for you guys replicating, is that something that's nascent to your timeline right now? Do you know when that's going to happen, or are we hoping for sometime in the near future?
Well, that's the $1 million question. Is you can show that your drug works in cell lines, and you can show that your drug works in animal models.
Yeah.
But the $1 million question is, how is it actually going to work in patients? Now, we're really fortunate because we know that we can get the drug levels we're looking for into patients and do it safely. You know, we have some side effects related to some GI upset, but at the end of the day, what's most important is we can get the drug levels we're looking for into patients. And I should note we're an oral medication you take twice daily. And so we think that's the first most important step in drug development.
I think I think
Go ahead.
you know, when you say that, that gives us, you know, it's a little more encouraging than we anticipated, because this is a tough subject to tackle, right? I mean, that's and I know you walk through that kind of with some trepidation, but I'll tell you what, that's some pretty good news, David.
Well, it's great news, and I can build on that. You know, during what is called the dose escalation portion of the trial, where you're trying to understand, you know, can you get enough drug on board and can you do it safely? We had a Ewing sarcoma patient who had failed a couple lines of previous therapy, and the tumors, the lesions that the physicians were measuring, reduced in volume by over 70% over 6 months of therapy. And this is an incredibly hard to treat cancer. And when we go out and talk to our specialists and our scientific advisors, they were ecstatic, because their message is, you just don't see this type of activity in single agent medicines in development. And so we were very excited. Now, it's important to note that patient ultimately had some progressive disease, but it's exactly what we were looking for early on in drug development. Can you get enough drug on board? And do you see the drug doing something? We saw that. And it was that confidence that caused us to expand the study, get into new tumor types, and now it's all about enrolling patients as quickly as we can.
Well, David, I first of all, I want to invite you back. Hope you'll join us again, because it was fascinating. I'd love to have you back on a regular basis as sort of our hard-to-treat pediatric cancer specialist here. Once again, his name is David Arthur. Salarius Pharmaceuticals, SLRX, is the stock symbol. Salarius Pharma.com.
Salarius.
All right, much more Big Biz Show coming up.